Good morning, everyone, and very welcome to the press room and to our college readout and press conference. We have the pleasure of having with us today Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera and Commissioner Wopke Hoekstra. Thank you very much for your presence. Executive Vice President, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Paula, and thanks to you all for joining us in this press meeting. So to share with you the readout of what it has been discussed today in the college. Just some few comments on other issues that have been discussed today before entering into the very relevant point around the climate law. Today we have adopted a proposal for an European climate target for 2040. We will go into the details shortly together with Commissioner Hoekstra, and we will be happy to take any questions you might have on this topic. But we have also discussed other topics, for instance, the strategy for European life science. Commissioners Borrelli and Zahareva will come to the press room just after this press conference and will present it to you. And lastly, we have adopted a quantum strategy for the European Executive Vice President Birkonen that will be presenting in the VIP corner at 3 o'clock this afternoon. But before giving you the floor, let me also mention that we have decided to transfer Niels Berndt in the interest of the service to the position of Deputy Secretary General for Policy Coordination in the Secretariat General of the European Commission and allow us to comment on the topic. Mr. Berndt is currently Deputy Director General in the Directorate General for Justice and Consumers. The date of this decision will be determined at a later stage. And now I come into the main topic. We will be introducing the two of us to you right now. You know that this is part of the political guidelines being presented, being introduced by the President of the College, Mrs. von der Leyen, to the European Parliament when asking for the support of the Parliament to this mandate and this college. We wanted to build the conditions to shape the future. We know that we will still need to work on further developments, but it is important to count on a general and reliable scope that fits for purpose in terms of competitiveness and modernization of our economy to become fully decarbonized, that comes along with what science tells us to do with our commitments, both domestically and internationally, and of course to identify a safety nets of flexibilities in case they are required. We think that it is a moment where we need to build hope. We understand that we need to bet on a competitive and modern economy in Europe, but also to provide the answers to the citizens, remembering that we are committed to a high quality of life for all Europeans, and that Europeans, around 85% of Europeans, say that climate is one of our biggest threats, and that it is important in a system like ours to be ready, to anticipate, to be ready to build on an economy, on a society that is fully resilient and that ensures that we did not keep on endangering the climate system or weakening our economic capacities. So we want to bet on competitiveness, responsibility. We want to respond to these concerns being expressed by the society. So to be ready when extreme events cause damage, impacting on the most vulnerable, impacting on the middle class. We want to build resilience. We want to build adaptation. We want to ensure that we dedicate the public resources to bet on a much more modern and climate-proof economy. We know that this will require building on skills, on jobs, on the creation, on wealth, on long-lasting, profitable business, as we have already stated in the Competitiveness Compass, in the Clean Industrial Deal, in the Clean Industrial Stated Framework that we adopted last week. Betting on innovation, using the resource in a smart way, facilitating the right conditions and consistent milestones in the horizon is part of what it lays behind this proposal. We trust science. We trust multilateralism. We are committed by the Paris Agreement. We are committed by our own domestic regulation. We want to bet on people, on industry, on individuals, to be sure that together we Europeans can do it. Even if it is challenging, we want to respond to the most existential challenge of our generation with full responsibility, building together. We want to be at the author of what our responsibility is asking for us, deserving our time, deserving our efforts, building the opportunities to deliver. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hoekstra.
Thank you, and ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. We're finally here on a very hot day, and some would call that very timely. What we're doing today is taking the next step in the European Union's path to boost and enhance its competitiveness, to strengthen its independence, and to cut its emissions. And we're doing so by putting forward an amendment to the European climate law that reduces emissions by 90% in 2040. And I know that many of you have been asking for this. Many of you have been thinking that actually it took quite a bit of time to get here. So let's also be straight and open about it. This is a sensitive topic, and in my experience, politics is at least as much about process, about communication, and about building solid majorities as it is just about content. And that is why we deliberately took a lot of time to think about this strategically, to engage with member states, to engage with civil society, with businesses, and of course with members of the European Parliament. Let's zoom out for a second. The context in which Europe operates, regardless of the specific topic, is actually extremely difficult. There's a huge amount of geopolitical turmoil. There's collective security and safety issues. And on top of that, there are worries about sustainable economic growth in many of our member states. We're therefore moving forward, and we're doing this because in our view, it makes sense from an economic, a security, and also geopolitical standpoint, to make sure that we stay the course on climate. It is about protecting our people from extreme weather events and from global warming. And the Eurobarometer, which was just cited, published on Monday, shows that 85% of Europeans are actually worried about climate change. But I've said to you before, and I think that we need to manage the paradox that many of those same citizens also worry what climate action might mean for them. And bringing them along, making this fair for them, is therefore of the utmost importance. It's also about protecting our economies from economic losses resulted from climate change. An example I often give, because the number is simply so intimidating, is the 11% GDP loss of Slovenia following its devastating floods. But more examples, unfortunately, are available from all over the European Union. It is about becoming more independent and resilient. The European Union is still paying billions of euros every single year to get imported gas and oil. So as a matter of fact, it is about regaining competitiveness. And in our view, decarbonization is a powerful growth engine. If we do it right, and I'm convinced we will do it right, it can and will fuel investments in innovation and in clean jobs. Solar could go from strength to strength. Batteries have huge potential all across the Union. Wind, same thing. Geothermal. So let's make sure that Europe is going to be a leader in the domain of clean tech. Fundamentally, it is about making a strong business case for investments in this clean transition, about leading the next S-curve in technology and in innovation, about, as I said, investing in clean tech. So let's give companies the predictability that they are rightfully demanding from us. They need to know where we are going to get a return on their clean investments. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is for all of these reasons that we're presenting a reduction target of net 90% by 2040. And we're clearly ambitious. And yet, and that is of the essence, we are pragmatic and flexible on the how to achieve it. It's a huge transition. Let's just realize that. And therefore it is of the most importance to be non-dogmatic about how to reach success. A lot has been said about the flexibilities, and let me dive into that right away. We will allow for, first, a limited amount of high-quality carbon credits outside of the European Union. And these carbon credits will have to be verifiable, they have to be certifiable, and they have to be additional, because only then will it truly help. And by the way, only then will it truly help in building the bridge with our friends all across the globe. What it will do at the same time here, it will give breathing space for hard-to-abate sectors. And it will open new markets for durable carbon dioxide removal technologies. Secondly, and that is here at home, we will integrate permanent European carbon removals into the ETS, into the emissions trading system. For example, a European paper factory that stores CO2 from bioenergy can actually generate and sell allowances, thereby making money from the ETS, and that is not possible today. And in our view, what that will do is build a much stronger business case for companies to capture CO2 and then actually store it. Third, we will provide greater flexibility across the pieces of legislation and sectors between 2030 and 2040. We just have to acknowledge and realize that each member state is different and faces different challenges in reducing emissions in different sectors. And with such an approach, we feel we would allow member states, for example, to compensate for struggling in one specific sector, let's say the land use sector, with overachieving on reducing emissions on, for example, waste and transport. Now, on top of these three flexibilities, we need to make sure we build a strong enabling environment with clear prerequisites. And in my view, that is truly the conversation we need to have in the next year or 1.5 years. We have set out a framework for our post-2030 climate and energy legislation. Now let's make sure we build a system and get the how right. And then we look at national specificities. We'll certainly look at cost effectiveness, simplicity, efficiency. Frankly speaking, many of the elements that are part of the Clean Industrial Deal. And yes, technological neutrality will absolutely be part of that picture, as it should be. Last but not least, we're continuing to deliver on these Clean Industrial Deal commitments. We have, as you know, already simplified CBAM, exempting 90% of companies while keeping in place 99% of the emissions. We're announcing today also our solution for CBAM exports. Also today, we're coming with tax incentives to encourage investments in clean technologies and industrial decarbonization through measures that our member states will have to take, like accelerated depreciation and tax credits. It is up to them, but we're convinced it is a very good idea going forward. And we have a clean industrial state aid framework with a whole range of measures over the coming months. And frankly speaking, the list goes on. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're staying the course on the EU's quest to decarbonize. And once again, we're doing it for competitiveness, for climate, and for our independence. Once agreed, today's proposal will give us, if you will, a true north. We've listened to the science. This is strategically smart for Europe to do. And we know why we're doing it. Again, for economic, security and geopolitical reasons. We know what we want to do, and that is the 90%. And we have a pragmatic approach on the how to make it work. 3 impactful flexibilities, a strong enabling environment, and a clean industrial deal. So we're ambitious, we're pragmatic, and we're flexible. We're taking a different approach, but with the same objective to achieve net zero by 2050. We do it for our people, we do it for our businesses, for our economy, and for a stronger and more resilient Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, we know this was a much-awaited topic. You have now the opportunity to ask your questions. Jennifer.
Over here. Commissioner Hoekstra, Jennifer Rankin from The Guardian. Commissioner Hoekstra, you've taken on the point of the international credits, but I would like to, and you've also said we have listened to the science, but on the very specific issue of the use of the international credits counting towards the 90% target, the Commission has not listened to the science. Can you set out why you decided to ignore your scientific advisors on this specific issue? And are you not taking a risk with the overall integrity of the 2040 target and with the economic incentives and certainty that you want to make sure are there? Thank you.
Well, actually, rather on the contrary. I think it is a deliberate and also wise decision to embark on this. You're absolutely right. It all depends on the how. If we don't manage to do it in a way that is verifiable, that is certifiable, and that is additional, then you could raise questions on whether it is actually effective. But humanity has done more difficult things than this. And I'm absolutely convinced we will pull it off. And let's also look here, or take into account the fact that the planet doesn't discriminate where emissions are being put into the air, right? Frankly speaking, it doesn't matter for Europe where we actually reduce. So we think it is fair game and actually smart to do the vast majority here, but also allow our companies and our countries to be flexible at the last couple of percentage points. And if that is cost effective, because that will be the main driver of it, then get that outside of Europe. Last point on this, and that is, I think, undervalued in this debate in the European Union. Our friends in the Global South are actually actively reaching out to us because they see the value in this. And in the dramatically difficult geopolitical times we are living in, having such a bridge at the nexus of helping each other with climate action, but also with the economy, I think this is huge. This has fantastic potential. And our friends in the Global South very much realize that this being variable, this being certifiable, this being additional, is part to make it work.
You? Christian.
Thank you. Christian Anner with ENS Europe. I have a question for Commissioner Hoekstra. I was wondering if you have any regrets about the decision to delay this, to, as you said, try to build broader political support for the proposal, given that this seems to have backfired with some major member states now criticizing this process that I think they described as being too secretive, as well as resisting rapid adoption at this stage.
No. But I'll make it even longer. What I said is in the introduction is this is a sensitive process. There are different views in different member states and also in the European Parliament. And in politics, you can have a great idea in terms of content. But what you then need to do is invest a lot of time, in my experience, in the process, in communication, and in seeking to build solid majorities that ideally are broader and more stable than just the minimum that you need. And that is precisely the process we have embarked on. And by the way, that is also the process with which we will continue. And that is fair game, right? This is a huge transition, so let's make sure we will continue this effort. Be sensitive to our member states. Be sensitive to what the business community and others are asking for. See how we can incorporate that. Frankly speaking, if I look at the design that we have now, and you've all seen it, not just the legal text, but also all the additional points that we're making, the proposal simply is way more robust and better than if we had done this just in the blink of an eye a couple of months ago.
Paunius from Germany. The French president has suggested to have a big debate about this proposal, which would probably take a bit more time. Do you think this is a good idea?
So me or for Teresa? Okay. So we have had very constructive conversations with all member states and certainly also with France on the various elements of this proposal. And we're very much open to continue to have that conversation. By the way, what is the process going forward? What will that look like? Already today in Coreper, the first conversation will start. Next week we will be in the ENVI Council in Denmark. There will be an additional ENVI Council in September where this will also be discussed. And why is it that we do that with considerable speed? Well, because we would like to have our NDC before we walk into Belém during the COP in November. And the logic of setting a 2040 goal, regardless of how exactly you think about the ambition, and then deriving from that a 2035 goal, is something that, at least in my appreciation, is something that is supported by the vast majority of member states.
Thank you, Vice President. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the question. I think that we are facing, as I say, an essential challenge. So it doesn't make sense to say that we are not in a position to respond to the challenge. And of course, it is complicated. We need to build the right conditions. We need to pay attention to the social fears, to the industrial pathways to become fully decarbonized, so something that can last and at the very same time something that can be workable in the short term. And it is evident that this is challenging for every single member state, for every single constituency, but I think that together we can build the right conditions to do so. So today we are framing the big picture for 2040. And I'm sure that the developments that we will still have to make will allow us to have proper discussion on how to set the conditions in every single aspect. At the very same time, it is true that the industries deserve a clear message on how we see and how reliable we are in terms of the process. The slope that we are presenting aligns with what it was considered the most efficient manner to tackle our 2050 goals, so to ensure that we can bet on innovation and the modernization of the industry and we can drive opportunities for the people. And I think that these are quite legitimate concerns, but being transparent and coming up with this proposal could help to boost investment, to bet on the European economy, and to build opportunities for the society. So I'm convinced that in a context where we are working, celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, having the opportunity to say to the rest of the world that we are committed, we will contribute as expected, we will build the conditions so to ensure that we can respond is important for all of us, and of course it is important for those that made a huge effort to have this final positive success of the French diplomacy, which is the Paris Agreement and the belief that the multilateral system is the place where we can find better ways to respond to the challenges.
Rafaela, please.
Thank you very much, Rafaela Schadretter for the Austrian broadcaster. We all know where this request, where these demands for flexibilities come from. My colleague mentioned France, but we know that there are elections coming up in the Netherlands, as well as in the Czech Republic, where self-named Car Party tries to attract voters. So my question is to the Commissioner, why do you think that your flexibilities might appease critics? And a question for the Vice President, what more flexibilities are you ready to offer to critics? And I think about the 2035 target when it comes to cars, for example.
Yeah, so first and foremost, we are coming up with these flexibilities because we truly, genuinely are convinced that they are an improvement to the system. I've just tried to elucidate why I think it is a great idea to have, for a small percentage, carbon credits. The same is true for negative emissions and filtering them back into the ETS. Just to give you that one example, a couple of weeks ago, I was in Sweden. It's the largest CCS project in Europe. What are they doing? They're getting emissions, or they're getting CO2. They're putting it in a ship. They're shipping it up north, and they're putting it into the ground. It is so huge. You're talking about roughly 2% of the total emissions of Sweden. We would be foolish to not be able to market that, to not take that into account. So I think actually it is a very smart thing. And the third part about the flexibilities across categories, let me also articulate where that comes from. Quite often I have conversations with member states which are doing very well overall, and which are doing, for example, also very well in the domain of housing, in the domain of cars, but maybe not so much in the domain of aviation, or the other way around. Does it then make sense to, without lowering the bar, give them the opportunity to already overperform in one category, be more flexible in another? I think that is the type of pragmatism that we need, and that is certainly something we want to embrace with this proposal. Indeed, many of these things have been mentioned by member states, but also by members of the European Parliament, and that is why I said I truly believe that the proposal as we now have it not only has more political longevity, but is, frankly speaking, also better in terms of its content.
Thanks for the question. I think that the main point that we want to make is that we are convinced that it is important to provide this clear horizon on what we are building, how we are doing, and what are the intermediate milestones that we need to achieve. And it is not because we need to combine every single gram of a ton of CO2 according to today's technologies that we are going to be able to convince anyone. We want to be pragmatic, humble, but at the very same time firm on the conviction that this is the best way to bet on the industry and the people, and not to look backwards from 2030 back to 2025 and say that we did not create the conditions to push for this technological revolution which is already taking place. So I think that providing the certainty ensures that we can bet today on the innovations that we will be needing in the time to come, so to create the scope, the learning curve to achieve these goals. If we look into the past, that was the case when we spoke about the developments of renewable energy solutions, or when we spoke about the electrification of the mobility. It seemed impossible to achieve the goals, the performance, the cost that we see today. And it was thanks to the fact that we created the right conditions to boost these markets, this capacity to invest in new solutions, these elements that provided the de-risking facilities to ensure that the industry was not alone, that the appetite pushed up. We are humble. We introduced this pragmatism, as Commissioner Hoekstra was underlying. I think that these flexibilities can help to get this safety net. I think that the conversations with the different industrial sectors will be very important, as it was in the past, around the Sevilla process, with the best available technologies follow-up. And we think that together, because we provide this reliable and stable opportunity to keep on boosting our capacities, we can create the conditions to look into the future. But of course, the main question is a question turning back to how we, the ones being with the responsibility to create the right conditions, can work together to create the right conditions to respond to the expectations not only of the business community, but also the expectations of the societies, the expectations of the mayors that do not want to see the health, the wealth of their neighbours being compromised, and accepting that whatever terrible dark red in the meteorological map is today an anecdote, could become a day-to-day reality in the time to come. So we are trying to combine, according to the data, the information, the best available technologies, but also the best economics, how we can build this landscape.
Gabriele.
Thanks for taking my question. Gabriele Rosane, Il Messaggero, Italian newspaper. First, a clarification on the readout. Was there a debate in the college this morning? And if so, Commissioner Hoekstra, if you could give us a sense of it. And for the Executive Vice President, green files are proving to be a bitter pill to swallow for progressive forces that voted for this commission and still support it on paper. As one of the prominent socialists in this college, do you find yourself in a comfortable position at this moment in time? And what's your message to your fellow progressives that are not so keen on accepting the new course on the green files that this commission is undertaking? Thank you.
So first, you were asking about the debate in college, and I'm not going to disclose a huge secret if I'm saying that, frankly speaking, 95% of the topics that are on the college agenda are being discussed. So yes, it was discussed, and of course people contribute to the various elements of this conversation. It was highly constructive. Of course, it is a conversation that also there contains questions and sensitivities, as it should be. I think that is completely justifiable. And yet, I think it was highly constructive. And what is at the heart of the conversation we were having is that all of this stands or falls with making sure we have the enabling environment, making sure the predictability is there, making sure the requirements in terms of simplification, in terms of lead markets, in terms of level playing field, in terms of the capital markets union, in terms of innovation, that whole set of things that we need to do regardless, that they will be the drivers of this success. And there is great convergence in the conversation on exactly that is needed.
Okay, no, thank you for your question. I think that it is important to remind ourselves that the mandate that we got as a College of Commissioners and the support to the President of the College is the main guidelines that we need to follow. And it is a mandate being supported by the pro-European forces, the pro-European platform that includes the Greens, the Social Democrats, the Liberals and the Popular Party, that underline the importance of the green driver to build competitiveness and social fairness. And I think that this is what we are trying to do, and this is what we have done. And of course, I know that there may be tough discussions within the different political families in the Parliament, but that is another institution. We in the Commission try to do our best to comply with these guidelines.
I come back to my right.
Thank you. Damien Génicaud for Context. Question to Commissioner Hoekstra. We know that France asks for more enabling conditions. As you said, today you are announcing your solution for CBAM exports and also some tax incentive for clean technologies. Is it a way to get French support to the target of 90%? And are you confident that with the flexibilities now in the proposal, you have a majority in the Council and in the Parliament?
So once again, the conversations with the French government, with the climate minister, with the minister for the industry and also others, in my view, have been hugely constructive. And by the way, I think France has been right to ask for exactly the type of CBAM proposal on exports that we're coming up with today. I think they're right in their quest for pushing for technological neutrality, and that is something that indeed is also very clearly in this proposal. As always, the political conversations continue during these type of processes until we have agreed upon them in both the Council and the European Parliament. But I'm confident that this is a stable, credible forward-looking proposal that will, in the end, get support in both the other two parts of the trilogue.
There's a lot of interest in the room and online. I'll take one question online. Kate Abnett.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for taking my question. Kate Abnett from Reuters. A question for Commissioner Hoekstra. In February 2024, the Commission publicly recommended that the 2040 target was a net 90% emissions reduction. You did not mention carbon credits in that communication, and the target was presented as if it would be a domestic emissions reduction like the EU's other climate targets. There was also hundreds of pages in an impact assessment setting out why that target was achievable. So could you tell us what's changed between then and now that mean you have decided to change your approach to the target, include international carbon credits, and now view them as an improvement to the system, as you said earlier? Thanks.
So again, what is at the heart of this for me is that we truly bridge between competitiveness, climate, and also independence. And let's be a bit self-critical here. Without blaming the past, I do think we have sometimes been too one-dimensional. It is exactly when you get it right, at this nexus of the economy and climate action, that you will create an engine for clean economic growth. And that is why it is so extremely important that we double down on clean tech, that we double down on all the enabling conditions that I was just mentioning. Because what we need to do is make sure that we expose European industry to the potential to be one of the winners in the future. I don't have my phone with me, but I'm sure you have. And if you look at it and you think about what it would look like 15 years from now, that's always a complicated thing to do. But just think what it was like 15 years ago. Nokia, a great company, was about to lose to BlackBerry, a company that now no longer exists, at least not in the business of making these type of phones. That is the type of transition we will see in many industries, right? That is only natural. And what we need to do, on top of what we need to do in terms of climate action, is make sure that regardless of the industry we look at, whether it is steel, whether it is cars, whether it is clean tech, that we set the enabling conditions for our companies to be the winners also in the next decade.
Vice President.
No, thank you. Thank you for the question and for the opportunity, and to reinforce, I would say, the great thing that we are doing today by the adoption of this proposal to amend the climate law. Because yes, 85% of the European citizens state once and again their concerns, their fears on climate being a big threat. But at the very same time, we also witness people that challenge the meteorological services, that make jokes about climate, that feed climate skepticism, desperation, polarization, and ask for delay. And in that given context, what it has been asked by some is to provide a certain amount of flexibility to ensure a safety net. But the commitment remains, stays. The willingness to honour what it was given as part of the political guidelines of this Commission is there. And then, of course, we still need to come into the very detailed approach on how we are going to create the very concrete conditions to make the puzzle to deliver. But it is there. So for all those challenging the science, deleting words and concepts, hiding the problems, asking to postpone, thinking that the world is going to remain and that the market is going to solve everything, even if there is not political involvement, the response coming from Europe is very clear. Yes, we, the European Commission, being in charge to provide the best responses to what it was asked in the treaties and to what it is asked by our society and our regulation, are ready to keep on working, to keep on providing solutions. So I could say that, yes, there may be certain flexibilities, The world of the beginning of 2024 was not the world of today. We had still a huge majority, including one of the biggest countries, supporting the multilateralism. This is not the case anymore. But we want to keep on doing. We want to keep on going because we think that we are betting on our people and on our future. So very honestly, I think that this relation back to the international arena is quite a good thing. To say to the rest of the world, we are here. We are there. We are going to bet and to invest on your sustainable development, your low carbon resilient, climate-proof development. So I think that, very honestly, it is quite a success. We will keep on working with the different stakeholders, with the national governments, with the business community, with the NGOs, with the research community, and trying to do our best to combine the different pieces so to ensure that this is the great opportunity and success that we want, that we need to shape our future.
And we take the two final questions, please.
Yeah, my name is Matthijs Scheffers from Het Financiële Dagblad, and I have a question for Commissioner Hoekstra on CBAM. So if I'm correct, you're going to compensate exporting companies who suffer from the fact that they have to pay for the emissions here and not in the region that they're exporting to. And you will do that with money that has been raised by CBAM, if I'm correct. And CBAM has always been considered as a form of own resources for the Commission, to be used for example, to pay off interest on loans that have been closed by the Commission. So what percentage of the income you generate with CBAM is going to be lost by the fact that you have to pay exporters now? Do you have a figure for that? Thanks.
Yeah. We do, but it's also important to articulate that the exact mechanism we will still determine, and we, by the way, are also very much looking forward for the input from business on exactly that. If you will be looking at next year, it's fairly small. We're talking about roughly 70 million. That number will go up a bit, but it will in any case be relatively small compared to CBAM as a whole. Why? Because we're doing this specifically for those companies at the risk of losing out because they're exporting. And you can imagine that in some sectors that is actually hardly the case. For cement, there are a couple of exceptions where we will carefully look into, but for cement, this is mostly domestic. Steel and aluminum clearly have that issue, and particularly those companies at risk, we will seek to help out. That is part of the broader agenda that we have to make CBAM work. ETS, great idea. CBAM, great idea, but let's make sure it is truly fit for purpose. And therefore, we're looking into 4 different elements. We already did the simplification, as you all know. We're now doing exports. We're going to have a conversation on scope, and we want to make absolutely sure that this system is not going to be manipulated or exploited by actors from outside of the European Union. That is fair for our businesses, and those 4 things we will seek to deliver on in this calendar year.
And a final question. Yes, please, here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lucas Knieger for Table Briefings. Mr. Hoekstra, you said that Article 6 margins give breathing space for the hard-to-abate sectors, but how does this fit into the fact that you're excluding the Article 6 credits from the ETS? Thank you.
So what will happen is that we're broadening the solution space, basically. And part of the work, part of the emission reductions can be done outside of the European Union. What it will mean is that, particularly if it is cost effective, and of course, we cannot tell exactly which technology will be the absolute winner, which one might be slightly behind. That is what the future will tell. But by broadening the solution space and allowing companies to do this, I am pretty sure that if this is cost effective, this is something they will move into. And therefore, for both our companies and for our countries, this is, in my view, a very important add-on. Notwithstanding the fact that, of course, the vast majority of emission reductions, and by the way, also carbon capture, will take place within the European Union.
Thank you very, very much for your many questions. We need to move on. There is a presser also with Commissioner Zaharieva and Commissioner Vahelia on life sciences, which was another topic of the college. I'd like to thank very much Executive Vice President Teresa Ribera, Commissioner Hoekstra for their availability, and please stay here if you are interested in the next topic. We will proceed swiftly with it. Thank you.